Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to Guiding Star Astrology. I'm your Astro Weather Girl, here with this week's Astro Weather Report. I'm going to show you how the stars are going to affect your life this week. I don't know about you, but I'd grown up being told that astrology was of the devil and that I should avoid it to protect my eternal soul. It wasn't until I got divorced, when everything fell apart, that I realized my well-meaning upbringing hadn't prepared me for the real world at all, and I began to seek for answers outside of my childhood boundaries. Having always loved astronomy, I soon discovered and fell in love with the ancient art of astrology. It healed my soul, it helped me discover and love who I truly am. It took me beyond all the people-pleasing, beyond the societal limitations, and into a world of authenticity and confidence in my future. It changed my life completely. You know, I was a single mother for 14 years, and that started just as I began my immersion into astrology. Through all the ups and downs of raising 3 beautiful children and creating a home for us, astrology was my foundation for understanding life. And it even led me to meet my wonderful soulmate and now husband, David from San Francisco. So if you're ready to walk away from your own limiting beliefs and build a life that you truly love, well, I'm ready to lead the way. And let's see what the stars have in store for us this week. Hello, my beautiful friends in YouTube land. This is a special video presentation looking at one of the most powerful impacts that's going to be unfolding in 2026. I will also have another video coming up in the next week or so looking at the other truly significant event that may not be on the radar of most Western astrologers, so do keep your eye out for that video coming up as well. This video though is about Pluto Out of Bounds, and essentially this video is from a presentation I did with my Patreon family a couple of weeks back. This is the presentation component of the video. The discussion that we all had for an hour or two together afterwards, I've left off this video. But if you would like to be a Patreon and participate in this community forum where we talk about current astrological events, usually in an annual or semi-annual get-together, then do head over to the Patreon Guiding Star family page. The link will be in the description below, and come and join us for more fabulous astro discussions. But this is my presentation of Pluto Out of Bounds, and I wanted to highlight the fact that in 2026, Pluto will be out of bounds between the dates of the 12th of August to the 11th of December. So basically, the second half of 2026, Pluto is going to be out of bounds. Now, this is part of a greater cycle of Jupiter being out of bounds for months at a time on occasion, and this is going to run from 2025 to 2036. And it's that period, 2025 to 2036, and the impacts of the moments when Pluto is out of bounds that we're looking at in this video. My friends, thank you for joining me. May you get blessing out of this presentation. And I'll see you in my next video looking at some of the key impacts in 2026. Welcome everybody to our wonderful Patreon Guiding Star family coffee chat. The date is the 18th of October 2025, a very important era in time, as we will soon discover. And it's such a delight to be talking about Pluto Out of Bounds with everybody today. Thank you to everybody who's joined for the coffee chat. I know in some parts of the world it's going to be an awkward time, but I really appreciate everybody staying up late, getting up early, whatever they've done to be here and join us for this really, really special conversation that we're going to have. Now, before we move into conversation mode, I thought I might do a little presentation about Pluto Out of Bounds. It is incredibly significant, and I've done some research this week further on what I already knew about it, and it has actually blown my mind. It's absolutely blown my mind. So I'm really excited to share it with you, and then we'll open up and unmute everybody and we can all have a chat about our thoughts regarding this amazing event. I'm just letting in a few more people as we go. And I will have to just keep an eye on that to make sure nobody's just sitting there waiting, waiting to be included. So let me just see. Forgive me while I fix a few things up here and let a few more people in. Now, all right. So Pluto out of bounds, everybody. Let's go there, shall we? So, firstly, what is out of bounds? Well, out of bounds, and I have a little note here to show you on a globe what out of bounds actually is. And of course, in my excitement to meet you all, I haven't brought my globe along. So I'm going to try and describe to you what it actually is. We have the Tropic of Cancer, which is 23 degrees, roughly 23 degrees and 45 minutes north of the equator. And we have the Tropic of Capricorn, 23:45 south of the equator. And the sun moves backwards and forwards throughout the year between these two tropics. At the, pardon me, at the solstices, the sun will be at either the Tropic of Cancer or the Tropic of Capricorn. And at the equinoxes is when the sun is at the equator from our vantage point here on Earth. And do forgive me, I'm getting over a rather nasty cold. So if I cough, I do apologize for that. So the sun is moving as the year progresses up to Tropic of Cancer, down across the equator, down to the Tropic of Capricorn, and then turns and heads back to the equator, up to the Tropic of Capricorn, and then turns and heads back. And this is the sun's cycle all year long, every year. This is why in Vedic astrology, they attribute the quality of consistency to the sun because it doesn't vary from this behavior. In fact, in ancient times, this was, in ancient mythologies, this was known as the battle between Enki and Enlil. Enki being, if you're familiar with Babylonian astrology, Enki being the Tropic of Capricorn, Enlil being the Tropic of Cancer, and the battle backwards and forwards between these two. Very fascinating. So this is consistency, the sun, whereas the moon, who has a very erratic orbit, it's a 19-year cycle before the moon comes back to its original position. That is very inconsistent. So the moon is variable. Pardon me. So, as I've said, this function of the sun happens between plus 23 degrees and 45 and minus 23 and 45, roughly, of the equator. So this is what we call declination, and it's the angular distance of an object in the sky, north or south of the equator. In this case, the sun's bounds is what we call this 23 plus 23 or minus 23. Now, when a planet moves beyond plus 23 or minus 23, it is considered to be out of bounds in astrology. And so the theory behind this, as above, so below, is, now I'll just admit, Jennifer, the theory behind this is that it's no longer under the control of the sun. It's a planet when it is no longer in those bounds between the projected into the celestial sphere, Tropic of Capricorn and Tropic of Cancer. It's no longer under the management of the sun any longer. It becomes therefore wild, unpredictable, unruly. It's not under governance. It's like teenagers being away from home on spring break. So therefore, when a planet is out of bounds, the planet tends to take its energies to an extreme level. It gets up to mischief, it gets up to no good, or it can go extreme in the positive, perhaps, no longer under mum and dad's control. So it's going to go and do its own thing. It's going to go and do its own life, for better or worse. So let me show you how to find out if you have any out of bounds planets in your charts using free astrological software. So let's go there. I will share my screen. Okie dokie. So we're going to go, oh, this is just our meeting chat. We're going to go to astro.com because I love astro.com, and it was the first astrological software I learnt to use. And so it's very ingrained in my very visually based mind, and it's free. So rather than showing you how to find this on something like Solar Fire, which not everybody has, I'm going to show you with free astrological software. So we're in the chart here. This is the extended chart selection I'm going to choose for my niece, who was born in 2005. No, she wasn't. That says 2025. She was born in she was born in 2005. So we're going to show the chart. And here comes my niece's chart in astro.com. And I'm going to click PDF additional tables. Now, if you need the notes for how to do this, just jot this down on your, if you've got a notepad with you. But then we get these additional tables, and this is quite fascinating. We have the longitude of the planets on the day she was born in her chart. We have the latitude, and we have the declination. And bless astro.com, they provide the information of out of bounds planets in red for us. So we can see at a glance, my gosh, okay, she's got her moon out of bounds at 26 degrees and 5 minutes 52 there, north of the equator. Now, in my chart set up at astro.com, just so everybody knows what we're looking at here, I also have all these fixed stars listed as points that come up for me automatically, and we can see that the fixed stars here are out of bounds as well. But when we're looking at just the planets, we can see here what planets were out of bounds. In her case, the moon was out of bounds. Let's go to another example. Oh, this Zoom stuff is in the way. There we go. Okay, so let's go to another example. This one, I'm hoping you all know how to get to the extended chart selection. You just, go to your details or put in your details, and then you choose extended chart selection. We're going to show the chart. This is the Constitution of Vietnam chart. Again, PDF additional tables. And we can see here another list of declination, and we've got Mercury out of bounds, out of the bounds of the sun there. One more chart just to drive it home. This is a chart many of you will be familiar with. We're going to go to the extended chart selection. Oh, I thought I had a different chart. Chart of Melbourne. Let me change this because this is not... Melbourne has out of bounds planets too, but what I really wanted to show you was the chart of the USA. And so we'll show the chart. And we'll go to additional tables and look at the chart of America. Venus is out of bounds, Mars is out of bounds, Pluto is out of bounds. So wild, erratic country that America is, which I love dearly. It has all these planets out of bounds. Now, I will admit they're not greatly out of bounds, like we saw with my nieces, which was at moon was at 26 degrees. This is just a few minutes out of bounds in this chart, but worth observing nonetheless. And very interesting, because we're talking about Pluto out of bounds, that in the chart of the USA, then they probably didn't know this at the time because Pluto hadn't been discovered, we have Pluto out of bounds in the chart of the USA. So we are back in that same, that America had their Pluto return some years back. When was it? Does anybody know? Taya, do you know? Was it 2020 that Pluto returned for the USA? Not sure. It was quite recently. Anyhow,
Yeah.
So we've had the Pluto return, and we are now in another cycle of Pluto out of bounds. So I'll stop the share. Oh, Mandy, yeah?
Hi, yeah, if we want to look at our personal chart, and we want to see this status sheet, should we also do it with transits to get them, or is that not relevant for this?
Oh, you can have a look at the transiting chart. Let me just go to, I'll get out of this. No, don't know if it does it with transits. Let's have a look and see. No, it's not going to show it with
No.
transits
Okay.
in the chart.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, so I'll stop the share. And yes, with regards to you could look at the chart of the moment to see whether, type in the details for, oh, today, 18th of October, and so on and so on, make a chart up. And then you can certainly go to that table and it would show you if there are any planets currently out of bounds. Soulfire has a mechanism for doing this every time you look at a chart if you want to. So there are definitely ways to do that. Okay, so back to our Pluto out of bounds. Planets that go out of bounds include Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter. Now, Jupiter goes out of bounds very rarely, but I wish I had that in my chart. Wouldn't it be nice to have an extreme expression of prosperity and abundance and so forth of Jupiter? So Jupiter is quite rare to see out of bounds, but occasionally it does. Uranus goes out of bounds, also rarely. Perhaps that's a good thing. Can you imagine? It's erratic and wild enough as it is, let alone when it's out of bounds. And Pluto, obviously, the other planet that goes out of bounds. Now, the moon is the planetary body that goes out of bounds the most frequently, especially when the nodes are traveling through Aries and Libra. And we've just come through that period. So the moon spent a great deal of time out of bounds over the last 2 years or so. So a lot of people were born with moon out of bounds. It does go out of bounds, on occasion in other when the nodes are in other signs, but it happens most frequently when the nodes are traveling in tropical astrology through Aries Libra. Now, you'll notice in that list I've just given you that the sun doesn't go out of bounds naturally because it's the one that is creating these bounds, essentially. It's like, if you like, the father of all the planets in the solar system, keeping things under control most of the time and keeping the planets on the ecliptic plane within within that declination space. Sometimes the kids go a bit wild and they go out of bounds. Eventually they do come back into bounds. They don't spend a great deal of time in the out of bounds state. But the sun obviously is always in bounds. Guess what the other two planets are? Saturn. No surprises there. The rule follower. Saturn abides by the rules, and it stays within the bounds. It stays within the rules. But the final planet that we talk about when we're looking at who goes out of bounds and who doesn't is Neptune. And this is quite intriguing to me. I was chatting with my husband about this the other day. Neptune is the planet that has no boundaries. How is this energy of Neptune, which stays within the bounds of the sun, reflective of Neptune being, a boundary breaking planet? It's not, sort of, to my mind, following the as above, so below kind of rules. What do you think? I might open this up to share in just a second. We can perhaps have a little discussion about why you may think or have a theory around why Neptune stays within the bounds of the sun when it is the planet of no boundaries. David, my husband, mentioned to me that, Neptune is the mask wearer. Neptune is a planet of deception. And, a lot of people think that Neptune is actually a feminine planet, not necessarily a masculine. There's been a lot of writings about this. Liz Green, in her book, fabulous, brilliant book about Neptune, did allude to the fact quite strongly that Neptune has correspondences to ancient goddesses that were goddesses of the oceans and the waters. And so there is this feminine crossover with Neptune, not necessarily masculine, even though we see Neptune as a masculine god or identity in the sky. So in that sense, David suggested that maybe Neptune's symbology is of deception within the realms of the familiar, no boundaries within the boundaries. If you can get your head around that. I struggle to get my head around it, but I can see where what he's getting at. Now, I will just quickly open up the chat or invite you, if you would like to share a thought around why Neptune is the planet of no boundaries in the boundaries of the sun. then please share. If nobody has anything to share on that or any ideas on that, you can certainly sit and stew on that particular concept. Anything else to share?
Yeah, I can share just a little bit, not too much, but so in my readings, I consistently see, I think Neptune is the most malefic planet out of them all. And I see it frequently with people having affairs or narcissism. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah. So
particularly when it's if it's talking to the moon by opposition or square, the opposition, I've actually seen it quite harsh. And the same with Mercury. When it's talking to Mercury, they're the two running themes that I see with it.
So how do you think, so my question is, it's the only, apart from Saturn, the only planet that stays within the bounds of the sun, and yet it does all this wild stuff. Can you sort of reconcile that in any way? It's a very philosophical question. It's something that perhaps we can all sit with and sort of ponder on because
the only
I thought I had read that it was due to its ecliptical nature.
Yeah, I'm kind of not. I'm not asking about the celestial mechanics of why it doesn't. The philosophical, as above, so below Hermetic principle. The planets and their behavior out there reflects in what they do to us here on Earth. So Saturn stays within the boundaries. Saturn is the rule-following planet, but Neptune is a boundary-breaking planet, and yet it stays within the boundaries. It's kind of very...
Is my speaker on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm just driving. So I have Neptune in my first house. Hi, Kate. I mean, it doesn't need, boundaries are irrelevant to it. So it doesn't require to be in a position where it's able to go out of boundaries because it's already in such a powerful non-boundary energy. Is my theory.
I like that, Kate. I like that. Yeah, I think that's heading in a direction that I can get my head around. So I appreciate that. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I'd just like to, I mean, makes perfect sense to me because the great mystics have always been part of institutional churches.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah. Taya?
Because the sun is this incarnation, so it's very relevant to reality as it stands right now, as does Saturn, having to do with reality. Part of me was thinking that maybe Neptune is really kind of its own authority. And that's why it can break the boundaries of this type of kind of a rule. By adhering to the rules, it's kind of breaking the rules at the same time and breaking the boundaries. But
concept, isn't it?
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with it. I think it's so gassy. It thinks that it's better than the sun. You know, I mean, I really do. I think it's like the gas that just keeps on burning. It doesn't need a flame. I'm just going to keep on, doing what I want to do. So
that's interesting because it does generate its own heat somehow or other.
Yeah.
So it is like a little mini sun. I have goosebumps. Another little mini sun out the other end of the solar system. And one thing I find utterly fascinating, I have not, as far as I'm aware, astral traveled apart from in my dreams, but I've been talking to people who do practice that, and they say there is one place that you cannot go, and that's Neptune. If you try to astral travel to Neptune, anyone do astral traveling here or into that sort of thing? Those who do.
I've tried. I've not. I've really consistently tried, and I can't. Now I can go into meditation. I can get real deep, and have amazing visions and stuff like that. But I can't seem to get the astral projection, and I've tried a lot.
Yeah, which makes me kind of doubt it, But like we get to a point in life, I think, where we're willing to try everything. Like when I came out of Christianity, I was like, well, that's it. Nothing's off bounds. I'm going to find out by experience now. Everything that I've been told is not for me. And what you've just described, Lisa, I haven't been able to generate that myself. So there's nothing wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with those who've tried and haven't been able to. It makes me wonder if it's a real thing. But I don't want to discount.
Agreed. Agreed.
I don't want to discount it nonetheless, for those who have. But anyhow, I have heard that Neptune is out off bounds if you astral travel. So interesting. Anyway, fascinating conversation. All right, we might get back to the Pluto component. So now that we've done a little side venture into Neptune, we're here to talk about Pluto out of bounds today. Now, Pluto is an extreme boundary pushing planet. He exists at the furthest reaches of the solar system. He governs the depths of the underworld. He rules transcendence, transformation, evolution, death and rebirth. He rules things like terrorism and organized crime, the underworld, power and control, and the mechanisms that we use to achieve power and control, amongst many other things that Pluto rules. These are extreme behaviors, and so no surprises here. As above, so below. Pluto is at the extreme end of the solar system, so he is a planet of extremes, plus he also goes out of the bounds of the sun. So let's put this out of bounds extremes into some form of expression. Then we're going to look at just Pluto here, not here to talk about all the other planets really that go out of bounds. Pluto is a generational collective planet. So let's start there. When Pluto goes out of bounds, I'll talk about the schedule of Pluto going out of bounds perhaps shortly. Let's look at what he does when he's out of bounds. We see that generationally and collectively and globally, there can be an increase in abuse when Pluto is out of bounds. Either we become the abusers or we receive on the receiving end of the abuse. Pluto brings globally and collectively significant rebirth to humanity. Fear becomes a big driver of change. There is a growth in society collectively and an interest in occult and magic, which I find actually exciting to think about that with Pluto out of bounds, because what are we doing here? We love astrology. It's an occult practice. And I feel that during this era we're entering into, which I'll mention started in August when Pluto began to go out of bounds again and will last on and off until 2036, we're entering into an era where occult practices like astrology are going to have an increased interest on the planet. So if you want to study to become an astrologer with me, please do. And those of you who are, we're in the right zone. We're feeling into the right energy. This is where humanity is going to go. Now, also, humanity and the collective can enter into fanaticism and obsessiveness, Pluto qualities gone to the extreme in the collective, rage behind the scenes. Pluto in modern astrology has been given the governance of Scorpio, which is to either super control their emotions until it bursts out, but it does correspond to this rage deep down that's being kept a lid on. And society, I don't know if you've noticed it, is heading very much in that direction. There is this underlying feeling of, I'm so angry with the way the world is going and how corrupted things have been and everything. There is this boiling rage below the surface amongst the collective right now. There's also, when Pluto goes out of bounds, focuses on politics and power. We see an increase in criminality, extreme Pluto expression. Pluto rules organized crime and criminality. Destruction and composting. So we might see a lot, I think we always see a lot when Pluto goes out of bounds, of composting of the old rules, the old ways. We can also see an increase in violence and intolerance. But we also get amongst the collective a greater courage to face the darker elements of society and existence, to stand up against the things that are wrong, because courage is actually connected to Pluto as the higher expression of Mars energy as well. Now, in a personal chart, if you're born with Pluto out of bounds, as most children born between now, and 2036 will have, These people tend to have more near-death experiences. In the shadow side, they can tend towards being compulsive liars, but that actually, interestingly enough, makes excellent marketers and advertisers. So presenting the falseness as truth, here's the, well, it's also Neptune, isn't it? The illusion, but Pluto has a hand in that as well. It can make people who are very good at empowering others and giving power to others. So that's important and a good component of an out of bounds Pluto. And let's face it, in the chart of America, Pluto is out of bounds, and America has been showing the expressions of all these sorts of things over the years, but very good at empowering other countries and on occasion. Perhaps we won't go into the talk of the politics there. Pluto can make you very powerful, and certainly America has been the empire of choice for the last couple of 100 years, especially in the last 100 years. So Pluto out of bounds in their natal chart. There's a magnetic energy that Pluto can give to somebody in their personal, if it's in their personal chart. They become very magnetic and compelling. People are just drawn to them. And there can be jealousies. The person with Pluto in their natal chart out of bounds can give or express rather a lot of jealousy, but can also receive a lot of jealousy of from other people. So as I said, this out of bounds period that we have just entered into began in August. It will last till 2036. This is over 10 years. And this is going to bring major unpredictable shifts in society, in power structures, and in our personal destinies. We're all going to be impacted by this cycle. And we're entering into this deep period of transformation on a collective and a personal level. So just when we thought we'd come out of the difficult energies of the early 2020s, here we are going into really amazing times, I will say. It is amazing times. This next 10-year period, my God, it's going to be full of upheavals. We're going to need to have a lot of courage. But oh my God, when I talk about what this is actually ultimately doing in the big picture, which I'll get to shortly, I'm excited. I'm really, really excited. And we'll talk about ways to manage these energies when we open up the group chat, perhaps. But I thought as a part of this presentation, we'd have a little look at some other times when Pluto has been out of bounds. It goes out of bounds, or it has been going out of bounds, roughly for about 1,500 years, occurring every time it's in Pluto and Leo, every time it's in the axis of Leo and Aquarius, it tends to go out of bounds just because of its ecliptic orbit. So let's have a look at some other periods. Okay. We're just going to look at two other times that went out of bounds and the kind of things that expressed. So I'll start with, so the most recent time it went out of bounds was during the Second World War. I'm going to go back another 80 odd years. No, back to, look, I'm not even going to try and do maths while I'm presenting to you guys. Back to 1774 to 1795. Pluto went out of bounds to the south. And that period was dominated by the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the American Revolutionary War that occurred during that time frame. The Declaration of Independence occurred in America during that time, and obviously the establishment of the United States, which we saw in the chart of the United States, occurred during that time. Now, it's interesting to me that people always blame Uranus in Gemini for big upheavals and big large-scale wars. Uranus moves in 84-year cycles. This is similar to the cycles of Pluto out of bounds. So who's truly to blame here, Uranus or Pluto? Which planet, I know which planet I think is more likely to cause large-scale war and upheaval. Uranus is revolution, yes, but a warring planet, Pluto is the higher expression of Mars, or the higher vibration of Mars, if you like. And so I actually think it's the Pluto out of bounds that might be behind all this war. But Uranus plays into it as well. Uranus being in Gemini tends to stir up and shake up and revolutionize our societies. Gemini, society. So these big boys play together, it seems. Revolution and societal transformation go hand in hand here. Now, Pluto back in the 1700s, when we're talking about here, was in Aquarius to the south. Now, whenever Pluto goes out of bounds to the south, it's when he's in Aquarius. I want to just mention Australia at this time. Australia was first discovered by Europeans in 1606. There was a Dutch navigator who landed on the Cape York Peninsula at that time in Queensland, a state in Australia. And this was the first recorded European landing in Australia, but Indigenous Australians have inhabited this continent for at least 50 to 60,000 years as far as we know. But after that first European landing, there were a few other Europeans that came along in the 170 years that followed. But in 1770, Captain Cook claimed Australia for the British imperialist empire, and we've been an unfortunate recipient of imperialist colonization ever since. So Captain Cook landed in 1770, claimed it for the British, and then from 1788 onwards, in the middle of Pluto out of bounds, the plutocratic establishment in England wanted to colonize Australia that it claimed for the British, but no one wanted to travel to the arse end of the earth to colonize it.
Of course.
So,
Declared.
sorry?
I'm being goofy. I'm driving. Don't listen to me.
Okay.
I'm cussing.
Okay. So
Sorry.
what did they do? What did the British do? They created all sorts of menial, insignificant laws, such as stealing a loaf of bread that would result in your transportation as a prisoner to Australia during this time. Men sent away forever from their homeland and their families. Women rounded up and sent as sexual fodder to the male-dominated sex-starved colony a couple of years later. This was such a traumatizing, Pluto rules trauma, traumatizing event for the people involved, not to mention the trauma that the British imperialists inflicted on the Indigenous people of Australia as well. So trauma in the extreme, and typical of plutocracy and the colonization that England did. Now, I could jump on my bandwagon and rant about that for ages, but this was colonization everywhere. It wasn't just England doing it. France and Belgium were quite horrific as well. But what does Pluto rule? Trauma, plutocracy, large-scale organized crime, not petty theft of a loaf of bread, but large-scale organized crime. It was criminal to round up these people for nothing and send them, into these traumatic situations. So let me just say, I'm so intrigued to see what Australia is going to do as this cycle now comes full circle, because we are having Pluto in Aquarius out of bounds again. This is the first time since Australia was colonized that has happened. So will we rebel against these traumatic imperialist people who tend to still have a governance over Australia today? Will we overthrow the puppet masters that control the British establishment of our, beautiful country? It certainly doesn't look like Australia's ready to do that right now, but, miracles have been known to happen. I can only hope so. But to me, it's very interesting that this is what happened in Australia. And at the same time, we had America and France and all these revolutionary wars happening at the same time. But look, for this sake of time, let's move to the next Pluto out of bounds period. I'm sure you're getting the idea of what Pluto does when he's in his out of bounds season, but let's see it displayed a bit further. In 1938 to 1953, Pluto was out of bounds in Leo. This is the era when we have the baby boomers being born throughout this period. And he was out of bounds to the north of the equator. And this coincided with events such as the establishment of the World Bank, hello, plutocracy, World War II. I probably don't need to say too much more about those events, given the plutocratic themes that they represent and the havoc they wreaked upon Earth's societies, and that we have been recovering from or under the influence of ever since. This period is what has led directly to the disastrous situation we're seeing in the West today, where we find ourselves on the brink of techno-feudalism and the downright neoliberal cannibalization of our economies and our cultures. I have I'm very opinionated about this sort of thing. So I thank you for being here to listen to me rant on my soapbox. But I think we were very deceived and traumatized and exploited and manipulated, all these Pluto things. We were the victim of Pluto out of bounds behaviors by organized crime families who run the West back in that last period when Pluto was out of bounds. And we're suffering for it. But now's our chance, Pluto back in Aquarius out of bounds, to rebel against all these imperialist mechanisms that were put in place at this time. It's so interesting to me that Pluto goes out of bounds on this axis, the axis of kings, Leo, and the leadership, Leo, and the hoi polloi, Aquarius. You know, that's to me fascinating that that's where he does it. And then we see this displayed in what's happening in the world. Now, whenever Pluto is out of bound to the north, we get tyrants, plutocracy, control, and war. Now, I'm going to quote here from a little piece I found online. The common masses experience a feeling of disempowerment, of being out of control and overwhelmed during Pluto out of bounds to the north. Fear ripples through society and power-hungry dictators rise into power. Exactly what we saw during the period of Pluto out of bounds to the north. Now, whenever Pluto is out of bounds to the south, we get the rise of the people, the revolution, and rebellion. When Pluto transits out of bounds to the south, instead of tyrants, we see the people rise up through revolts, rebellions, chaos, implosions, collapse, and shifts that move from the internal to the external in society. And this is why we're seeing the current crop of tyrants in the world desperately trying to implement control mechanisms like digital ID and social credit. It's like they sense the kickback is coming, and it is coming, but it's too late. We, the people, are sick of being sprayed, vaccinated, taxed to the eyeballs, exploited, manipulated, and controlled. There is going to be, during this time, a rebellion. We need to understand that's what Pluto in Aquarius does. And we need deep breaths and a lot of things we need to survive and thrive through this time. Now, there is a wonderful article on astro.com exploring the last 2,000 years of Pluto out of bounds. If anyone would like to read it, just do a Google search, astro.com, Pluto out of bounds, it'll come up. And I encourage you to read that, because it actually goes through all the Pluto out of bounds periods in the last 1,500 years or so, and explaining what were the outcomes collectively in society of those times. And it's a fascinating read if you're into your history. One thing is very different about this Pluto out of bounds, though, and I'm always looking for hope in everything. And because I've seen this or read about this, I am so excited about this Pluto out of bounds period. Now, anybody who watches my videos knows I'm a fan of the Yuga cycle theory. And without going too deep into it, I will give an overview of this concept. Okay, it's a cycle of roughly 24 to 25,000 years that our solar system is in. And it is believed, Shri Yukteswar wrote about this, and a number of other, I don't know exactly where he got it from, but a number of other people have then been sharing this. It's been known in the Vedic philosophy for a very, very long time. Pluto's great year, Plato's great year is based on this concept as well. So it's a very ancient concept, and it's this 25,000 year cycle of our solar system. It is believed that our sun is in a binary system with another body. Now, that could be another star, could even be another planet. We haven't quite figured out exactly what this binary system that our sun is circling with is. But if you look at 80% of the stars in the night sky, they are all in binary systems. 80%. It is a high probability that our sun is in this binary, or maybe even a trinary, who knows, maybe more, system with another astral body. But this is where this Yuga theory comes from. And if this is the sun and this is the other astral body, they kind of circle like this around one another over this 25,000 year time frame. Now, when these two are closest together, it is theorized by this Yuga theory that I'm describing, that humanity is in the golden age. We have a high vibrational operation as a collective and as individuals. We live in light, we live in love, we are healthy, we're prosperous, we live in care and kindness and community with one another. There's no exploitation, no greed, corruption, wars, violence, etc. Essentially, we're in heaven on earth. It is Valhalla, it is Avalon. This is the golden age when the sun and its binary companion are close and the vibration of humanity rises. But then over this cycle period, which takes, let's say, roughly 12,000 years for them to move to the furthest point apart from one another, we go through what the Bible calls, the ancient scriptures call, the fall, the drop down into low vibrational status as a collective humanity on the planet. And of course, this then is an age where it's no longer, we go from the golden age to the silver age, to the bronze age, to the iron age, or the Kali Yuga, as the Vedics call it, the hell realm. This is when we live through an age of exploitation. It lasts about between 2,000 to 4,000 years. Exploitation, war, deceit, poverty, ill health, violence, corruption. It's awful. And according to this theory, we are now on our way out of the hell realm. In fact, according to Shuri Yukteswar, we are actually at the exact point in this cycle that mirrors. So if you see a circle, okay, we dropped down, and as we dropped down to the Iron Age, we had the collapse of the Bronze Age about here in the circle. Okay, we dropped down from the Golden Age. About here was the collapse of the Bronze Age, about, I think it was 1500 years BC. And then we've been in this Iron Age ever since, but now, or the Hell Realm ever since, now we're on our way back up to the Golden Age. And according to Shuri Yukteswar, we are at the exact mirror point. So here's the drop down where the collapse of the Bronze Age. We are at the exact mirror point right now where we are moving into the new Bronze Age, on the rise back up, leaving the Hell Realm behind. Hallelujah. This gives me so much hope and so much excitement. Do you want to know something else very interesting? Pluto was out of bounds to the south at the time of the collapse of the Bronze Age. So that is actually when Pluto began to go beyond the bounds of the sun and move beyond that governance of the sun's energy at the time of the collapse of the Bronze Age, and all through this era of the Hell Realm, or the Kali Yuga, or the Iron Age, whatever you want to call it. Pluto has been going out of bounds every 80 odd years or so. You know what? He is about to stop going out of bounds for thousands of years. I mean, I get goosebumps when I think about this. Can you tell how passionate and excited I am? We are not only transcending out of the Hell Realm, out of the Iron Age into the new Bronze Age, we are actually leaving Pluto going out of bounds behind. This is the last time, this 10-year period, the last time. This gives me hope that all is not yet lost for humanity. I was also encouraged when I saw that, and I discovered this sort of back earlier this year. In the stars at the moment, there is a minor grand trine in the sky between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. That has not formed in the sky for this whole period. The last time it did form, collapse of the Bronze Age, and here it is repeating in the sky right now as we rise, I believe, into the new Bronze Age. Pluto is going to stop going out of bounds. We have this incredible outer planetary minor grand trine forming at the same time, all of which have not happened since we entered into the Hell Realm. So, I really feel that this minor grand trine, it holds space for humanity. The divine realms are watching over us right now in a way that they have not done since we had this period of the collapse into the Bronze Age, including Pluto when it first started going out of bounds. This puts a whole new spin on everything that we are seeing happen in the world right now. Pluto out of bounds we know as the sign of revolution by the hoi polloi. And now we've got revolution coming for the first time in the next 10 years with the protective minor grand trine watching over what unfolds as we move into the new Bronze Age. When we've had revolutions in the past, couple of thousand years while Pluto's been doing his out of bounds thing, we have not had that minor grand trine watching over things. Now we do. In this period, as we move out of the era of time, the large scale era of time of Pluto going out of bounds. So it's incredible, I find, to ponder this. I believe what we're seeing in the world right now, awful though it is, are the labor pains of the new age that's being birthed. Yes, there might be revolution, there might be need to fight, but then there's definitely a need for humanity to rise up, but it's not a collapse. It's actually a shift into the new Bronze Age. So to my mind, and we can all share about in a minute when I open up the chat, we can all share about what we think we might need to go forward in this world. We need to support one another, I think, protect one another and live in love with one another in these coming years until 2036 and beyond, obviously. Community and true connection are just so important right now. We need, I feel, to be somewhat independent from the corrupt systems, and that will get us through. So we need to find our people, find our tribe, maintain love over anger and hatred. We need to hold strong while the world transforms into this better place, and it will. This is energy. You can't fight it. It will do what it needs to do. From what I have read and from my searching, using, I used my astrological software to look a few hundred years into the future. And Pluto is not going out of bounds, and I have read articles saying he's not going out of bounds for thousands of years to come. That all lines up with what I'm talking about, but we need to get through the next 10 years to enter into this greater age of enlightenment that we're on the brink of. Just to conclude, my husband's favorite book is The Odyssey. And in our first conversation online, I don't know if anybody saw that, I asked him, you're a writer, what's your favorite book? And he said The Odyssey. And The Odyssey is a metaphor for the cycles of the ages. There is an age represented in this story of the Odyssey. I don't know if everybody knows it. If you don't, just do a Google search about the outline of the story or read it, better still. I think they're producing a film actually with about the Odyssey, which is quite interesting that for the first time ever they're doing a film on the Odyssey at this point in history. No coincidences with that, perhaps. But there is an age in this story that is dominated by the suitors. So you've got the King Odysseus, who is not exiled, but he's been away battling in the Battle of Troy, and he gets captured, if you like, by a goddess who keeps him her sex slave for umpteen years, and then she's told she has to let him go, and Odysseus starts his journey back to Ithaca, the country that he is the king of. All the while he's been away, Ithaca has been ravaged by these suitors, these aristocrats, these plutocrats who are devouring everything, trying to sleep with his wife, trying to, get control of the country and run the whole country. And this metaphor, nobody knows how old this ancient story, theoretically written by Homer, is. It could be a message from the Golden Age in story form for humanity to remember that there are these cycles. Odysseus comes back and he single-handedly routs all the suitors who are devouring, the plutocratic suitors who are devouring his nation. And he returns the kingdom to its rightful state of peace and abundance. Now, from now on, after this 10-year cycle, Pluto is going to be contained within the bounds of the sun for thousands of years. To my mind, this is the Odyssey is a metaphor for this. Odysseus is kind of the representation of the sun who pulls everything back into order again and makes, everybody come into the bounds. And the plutocratic energy is being put back in its place until the cycle comes full circle again and we go back to the plutocratic hell realm, Iron Age again. Now, that will be enough of me rabbiting on my little bandstand here about what we're facing with Pluto out of bounds. The cycles of the heavens are eternally fascinating. And above all, at this point in history, and maybe this is the reason so many of us have chosen to incarnate at this point of time, we want to see this happen. This is a big shift of energy. It is a hopeful time and a significantly historic time that we are alive in. So I'm going to open it up, and I want you to just, I'm going to step back and I want to hear everything that you guys think about this concept that I've been jumping up and down about for the last 20 minutes or so. What ideas do you have about this? What thoughts about Pluto out of bounds? What do you see happening in your societies that is representative of Pluto going out of bounds? And what strategies can we utilize to deal with the next 10 years that is about to unfold?